And I've been heating up oil on the stove. Okay. I'm Jing, I'm the founder of Fly by Jing. Today I'm going to show you how to make 3 different dishes using an ingredient most of us have in our pantries, flour. One from my hometown Chengdu called Sweetwater Noodles. Biang noodles, which is a hand-pulled noodle. It's a Xi'an style noodle that has lots of aromatics, it's spicy, and there's a hot oil to finish. And lastly, we can use the same dough to make a scallion pancake using the scallions that we all have growing on our windowsills. Hand-pulled noodles are a traditional way of making noodles in China. By pulling it with your hands, you're actually stretching the dough, elasticizing it, and really working the gluten. That results in a better bite and a better mouthfeel. For the 2 noodle doughs, it's pretty much a variation of the same thing, which is flour, salt, and water. I'm using a bread flour here, or like a high gluten flour, and this is for texture. Do not use like a cake flour because that's really low gluten, and you want something that's got bite. We're gonna take 250 grams of flour. We're gonna put 1 teaspoon of salt, and then we're gonna put half a cup of water. We are going to put it on a lower setting, like a 1 or 2, and just wait for the dough to form. This measurement is a little flexible depending on where you are, the climate you're in. It's not really a precise science. It's not really like Western baking. Once the dough forms around the hook, it comes off easily, it's not sticky, and that's usually after about 5 to 10 minutes. And if it is still a little bit sticky, like right now, just add a little bit of flour. If there is not enough springiness to the dough, you can add a bit of water. Once you form a ball, you want to let it rest. The protein in the flour binds to each other, and so later on it's easier for us to pull it and it'll be elastic without breaking. And then you want to set it aside for 1 or 2 hours. So take a rolling pin and you just want to roll it out into kind of an oval shape. Don't roll it too thin, because the beauty of Sweetwater noodles is kind of its like thickness and chewiness. So once it gets to this shape, we're gonna let it rest for another half an hour. We're now gonna cut it into pieces roughly like about a finger's width. After they've rested a little bit, you can start to pull the noodles. Bounce it a little bit, and you'll want it to at least double in length. A common mistake is just not waiting long enough and just being impatient and wanting to pull the noodles as soon as possible, because then you'll encounter breakage. If I could hop on a plane anywhere today, I would go back to my hometown, Chengdu. I really honestly think that Chengdu has some of the best food in the world, especially for noodles. This dish is not meant to be a main course, it's more of an appetizer. So when you put the noodles into the pot, you want to mix it up a little bit with chopsticks or spatula. The reason being, you don't want them to stick. Also, this water is salted, so it'll cook for about 3-4 minutes. Because the noodle is a bit thicker, you want to make sure it's fully cooked through before you take it out. After it starts to float on top of the water, it's almost there. So once it starts to float, let it sit for another like half a minute and then check. It's done. So I'm gonna just take it out of the hot water. You could pour a little bit of oil, so we're gonna use some sesame oil to make sure that it's not sticking. The Sweetwater noodles has a sweet, spicy, savory, thick sauce. To make the sweet soy sauce, you need equal parts soy sauce and brown sugar. So once the brown sugar and the soy sauce are combined, put it in a small pan over like low to medium heat. You just want the brown sugar to fully integrate with the soy sauce. So you'll see instantly the soy sauce becomes quite thick. And the longer you brew it, the better the flavor. But we're gonna add the spices whole because we're gonna take it out afterwards. So for this little amount of soy sauce, just 1 star anise and a little piece of cassia bark is enough. So once you have this sweet soy concoction, you want to leave it overnight because at this point the flavors haven't really developed. Leave the spices in there and then, you know, overnight, the next day, fish out the spices and then it's ready to use. So now we're gonna heat up some oil for the chili oil. The oil for the chili oil needs to reach a certain temperature, usually about 275. You don't want to go too high because the chilies will burn. And if you are too low, then the temperature is not high enough for the fragrance of the chilies to release. This does need to be kind of exact. So one other tool, which I forgot to mention that I love, is my temperature gun. So key. When making chili oil in particular. You just want to make sure this gets up to like 275 at least. Start pouring in your chilies and then instantly you're gonna kind of smell this amazing fragrance release. So obviously you can use any type of chili here. I prefer Argenteuil just because I find it the most fragrant. Like, yeah, it's amazing. Just like with the soy sauce, you need to let it rest for a while. Overnight is best. These two are basically the foundation of the Sweetwater sauce. So we're gonna add our chili sauce and sweet soy into this bowl, followed by some garlic. The final touch is sesame paste. So here we're gonna use tahini. Some sesame seeds. This is kind of how it looks when it's served, and you just have to really mix it up. You have to get in there because all the flavor is in the sauce. That's it. This is one of the messier noodles to eat, but it's very worth it. It's perfect. And I love that there's this difference in texture. You can really see, like, when it was stretched, the variation between every strand, and then the ends where my hands were when I was pulling, it's like a little thicker. What I love about this dish is the way that the flavor really seeps into every single crevice of the noodle. So the ingredients that I can't live without in my kitchen, every Chinese kitchen just needs black vinegar. And this brand, Zhenjiang Shangcu, is, you know, indisputably, you know, the best from China. And they also have many different grades, and this is kind of a basic everyday use one. Of course, I think the condiment that I reach for the most in the kitchen is Sichuan chili crisp. So this is our flagship product. It is a blend of 15 different premium ingredients, including Argenteuil chilies, which are Sichuan's most famous type of chili. It's known for its fragrance. And then tribute pepper, which is the highest grade Sichuan pepper that's available. I personally have driven out 3 hours into the countryside outside of Chengdu to source it. I wish you could smell this. We are going to make Biang noodles. This is going to require a bit more stretching. Form it into kind of a rectangular shape. Cut it into strips, 5 pieces. You're just gonna roll it out to make it a bit more of a flatter strip. The thickness that we're rolling out to is similar to the Sweetwater noodle, maybe a little bit thinner, roughly like 1/2 centimeter. You just use your hands, make sure there's enough oil on both sides. At this point, you can cover it in plastic. You can also just put this whole thing in like a stainless steel bowl or something and put it in the fridge. So before you pull it, just take it out, let it sit room temperature for at least half an hour. And now we are going to start pulling. One technique I've seen is like chefs would make like an indent in the middle. By now it's super easy to pull. So you can, you know, slap it against the table And the slapping motion is not just for fun, it's, you know, to actually work the gluten in the dough. You know, you can take it from the middle where we earlier made an indent and just kind of like pull it. So now you have quite a long stretch of noodle. Yeah, so just making sure there's plenty of flour. And yeah, it's like kind of therapeutic. So for each strip of dough, you can really make like, you know, something like 4 strands of noodles. And the more you're able to stretch it, the more bouncy the texture is gonna be. Every strand is not meant to be the same. It's very home styly, and that's part of the comfort. It can be as raggedy as you like. Make sure that to separate the strands. So all the ripples you see on the noodles, this is where the flavor is going to collect later on. Need a ladle. Okay. Add some of the aromatics like garlic, some minced ginger, some scallions. And then this is pre-ground chilies, some cumin, some coriander, and a bit of salt mixed in as well. Just make sure you put a big heaping spoonful of that. And I've been heating up oil on the stove. We're gonna pour the oil on top, and what that does is it releases all the fragrance from the chilies, the spices, the garlic, ginger, and the scallions. We're also gonna pour a little bit of vinegar and soy sauce over top. So this is a really different flavor profile from before. The other one was kind of rounded, sweet. There's a lot more fragrance from the chili that comes across, and then also from the cumin that is dominant in the spice mix. The beauty lies in this imperfection, because that's where all the flavors kind of get trapped. An indispensable tool in any Chinese kitchen is a cleaver. It's just a super versatile knife. You know, we don't have like paring knives, but they can pair with this. Like, this is extremely sharp. You can also use the other end of it as like a blunt object to kind of like tenderize meat. This particular one was made in Chengdu by a metalsmith that has been making handmade woks and cleavers for many generations. So lastly, we're gonna make our scallion pancake. This is the same dough with just a little variation. So instead of cold water, we use hot water for this. And the reason why we do that is to actually cook the flour a little bit, cook the dough a little bit. When we cook the dough with the hot water, it actually helps in getting that crispy texture that we want when we make our scallion pancake. We don't want it doughy. Once you form your dough, and after it's been rested, separate it into 2 balls and really roll it out until it's quite thin. Okay, so you'll want 2 sheets, kind of like this size. We want to use a fat, and here I have coconut oil. A really common fat that's used in Sichuan is pork lard. Coat the layer fully in the fat. Take some salt, make sure that it is well salted. The mala spice mix has cumin, star anise, cassia bark, so it just adds a bit more flavor, but you don't have to add it. You can just do salt if you want. I prefer mine with salt and definitely with Sichuan pepper. Finally, the scallions. So I like mine with a ton of scallions, but obviously there's no rule here. So once you have your sheets like this, you kind of start to roll up your pancake. And you just want to keep it a little tight. So once you have your cute little burritos, you can divide each one into approximately maybe 3 pieces. So you can see all the layers. Flatten them with your hands first, And then take a rolling pin and start to kind of flatten it out even more. The oil might come out, that's fine. So you want to make it like a little bit bigger than your hand so we can still keep going here a little bit. About this size, it's like really good. And you're just gonna do that for each one. So heat up a pan, a non-stick pan. Put some more of whatever fat you were using, so coconut oil. Put this down. Just kind of wait and keep looking to see whether, you know, the bottom side has started cooking. So I think when you do this, it kind of like agitates the layers a little bit. That's what I've been told. So you get, you know, nice flaky layers. Scallions are really popular in these pancakes, but you can put ground pork or beef. I've definitely seen cheese scallion pancakes. Okay, so these beauties just came out of the pan, and you can kind of see the layers here still. And we were kind of like agitating it while it was in the pan, so, you know. Now the outside is super crispy. You can cut it into it. And you can kind of see the layers. Here it is, scallion pancakes. Drizzling of chili oil on top. Mmm. Mmm. So many layers. I think you can hear the crunch. It is really, really just like crispy throughout, but then the middle layers have a tiny bit of chewiness to it. The mala spice that we used as seasoning is really coming out here. And the coconut oil that we used was really instrumental in kind of like making it flaky and not oily. Thanks for joining us. Today we made 3 dishes with the same dough. Let us know in the comments below what your favorite type of noodle is. And if you're interested in picking up some Fly by Jing products, you can find them on flybijing.com. Once again, I'm Jing, and it was great to be here with you. We'll see you next time.